Welcome to this channel. At the sum of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories for you. Subscribe. Xeno 7, an ancient and forgotten outpost drifting on the edge of the galaxy, lay in a state of ruin. Long ago, it had been a bustling waypoint for travelers journeying between star systems, but now it was little more than a shadow of its former self. The massive station was silent, save for the occasional creak of aging metal and the faint hum of an underpowered generator deep within its core. The few scavengers who dared to visit spoke of strange relics left behind, whispers of machines that once served purposes now lost to time. One such relic stood in the heart of the abandoned marketplace, an enormous vending machine, towering over the empty stalls and decayed structures around it. Its metallic surface was dull with dust, the once vibrant holographic panels now dark and lifeless. The machine had been there for as long as anyone could remember, yet no one knew what it was for. It hadn't worked in over a century, its purpose a mystery, a piece of forgotten history. Aboard the Astral Hound, Kaya Evers gazed at the drifting outpost through her viewport, curiosity gnawing at her. She had heard the stories about Xeno 7, about the ghostly market and, more importantly, the vending machine that had been sitting idle for 100 years. To any other traveler, it was just a broken piece of junk from a bygone era, but to Kaya, an engineer with a knack for fixing the unfixable, it was a puzzle begging to be solved. Kaya was not your average engineer. In a galaxy where advanced AI handled most repairs and diagnostics, she had a rare talent, a kind of intuition for machines. She could take things apart and, more often than not, put them back together in ways that even the finest droids couldn't manage. Her father had called it human ingenuity, and growing up as a mechanic's daughter, she'd learned that sometimes all you needed was creativity and a roll of duct tape. Docking in 5, came the voice of Laris, her ship's AI companion. The outpost appears stable, though I detect minimal energy signatures. Perfect, Kaya replied, strapping on her tool belt. Let's hope the vending machine is as stubborn as they say. As the Astral Hound glided into the docking bay, the sheer size of Xeno 7 struck Kaya. The station had been built for tens of thousands of travelers, yet now it was a silent tomb. Her footsteps echoed as she made her way through the empty corridors, passing rusted kiosks and signs written in languages she didn't recognize. A layer of dust coated everything, making the place feel frozen in time. After a few twists and turns, she found herself standing in the middle of the marketplace. In front of her loomed the vending machine, larger and more imposing than she had imagined. It was a strange amalgamation of human and alien design, towering at least 10 feet tall, with a sleek metallic surface marred by centuries of neglect. Kaya walked around it, inspecting the massive construct with growing excitement. The front panel was covered in grime, but beneath the dirt, she could make out rows of buttons and a large, faded screen. Alien glyphs surrounded the controls, symbols she couldn't read. A plaque at the top read, Galactic Convergence Vending System, the only words in standard Galactic. Well, that doesn't tell me much, Kaya muttered, running her fingers over the control panel. She tried pressing a few buttons, but there was no response. The machine remained silent, its internal mechanisms long dormant. Kaya knelt down, examining the seams and compartments. It was clear the machine had been designed to dispense something, though what exactly, she had no idea. Why would anyone build something like this and then leave it to rot, she wondered aloud. The whole setup seemed out of place, like it didn't belong on this decaying station. She pulled a small scanner from her belt, running it over the vending machine's surface. The readout was full of anomalies, strange power fluctuations, materials not found in any known star system, and an energy signature that was faint but still detectable. Kaya's heart skipped a beat. The machine wasn't completely dead. All right, big guy, she said, pulling out her tools. Let's see what you've got. With a practiced hand, she pried open a panel near the base, exposing the machine's internal workings. The wiring was a mess, corroded and tangled, and several of the components were completely fried. It was clear this machine had been through some serious wear and tear, but it didn't look beyond saving. At least, not for someone like her. "Looks like you've had better days," she muttered, carefully untangling a few wires. The tech was far more advanced than anything she had ever seen before, a mix of human ingenuity and alien precision. Kaya could feel a thrill of excitement. This was a challenge, and if there was one thing she loved, it was a good challenge. She spent the next hour working through the machine's insides, replacing what she could with spare parts from her toolkit and using her trusty duct tape to patch up the more delicate areas. The power conduits were completely shot, but she managed to reroute some energy from the station's dwindling reserves to get a low-level current running through the system. With a few final adjustments, Kaya reconnected the last of the wires and stood back. The vending machine remained silent for a moment, and then faintly at first lights began to flicker on the control panel. The screen, long dark, blinked to life with a soft hum, displaying lines of alien code that slowly shifted into readable text. System rebooting. Galactic Convergence Vending System initializing. Kaya grinned, wiping the sweat from her brow. That's more like it. The machine sputtered and whirred, gears inside grinding against years of neglect. For a moment, she thought it might break down again, but with a deep, mechanical hum, the vending machine fully activated. Lights danced across the interface, and a holographic display appeared above the control panel, showing a series of unfamiliar symbols. But then something strange happened. A deep rumble resonated through the station, as if the very structure of Xeno 7 was reacting to the machine's activation. Kaya took a step back, her heart racing. The lights in the marketplace flickered, and a low vibration moved through the floor. What the dash? Suddenly, the machine's holographic display changed. A message in Standard Galactic appeared on the screen. "Please select your item." Kaya stared at the message, her mind spinning with questions. Select an item? What kind of items? And why had this machine been left here, dormant for so long? But before she could make a decision, the station itself seemed to react to the machine's reactivation. Distant alarms began to sound, echoing faintly through the outpost's empty halls. The sound sent a chill down Kaya's spine. She looked back at the vending machine, her hand hovering over the controls. What did I just wake up? Kaya stood frozen, the eerie hum of the newly awakened vending machine filling the empty marketplace. Its holographic display continued to pulse with a soft blue glow, the message "Please select your item" hanging ominously in the air. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. What exactly had she just activated? The station around her creaked and groaned, as though Xeno 7 was slowly coming back to life along with the machine. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that stretched and shifted like ghosts of the station's forgotten past. The air felt heavier, thick with an energy Kaya couldn't quite explain. I definitely woke something up, she muttered under her breath. Despite the growing sense of unease, her curiosity overpowered her fear. She took a step forward, eyeing the machine's flickering controls. Alien symbols danced across the screen, morphing into different options. There were categories: food, technology, medicines, artifacts, and more, each one promising something, though what, Kaya couldn't be sure. The categories seemed strangely broad, as if this machine could provide more than just physical items. Kaya reached out and hovered her hand over the holographic interface, but hesitated. Before she could decide, the machine emitted a low beep, and the text on the display changed again. System error detected. Please service internal circuits. The message blinked a few times before fading out. The vending machine's lights dimmed, and it let out a metallic groan, its internal mechanisms grinding to a halt. Kaya frowned, frustrated but also intrigued. The thing had worked, if only briefly, but it clearly wasn't stable. She was going to have to dig deeper into its guts. Guess it's back to work, she said, pulling out her multi-tool. Kneeling beside the massive machine, she pried open another panel. The inner workings were a jumble of alien and human technology, parts cobbled together in a way that made no sense. Whoever had designed this vending machine had clearly been working with multiple systems, merging technologies from various species across the galaxy. The deeper she looked, the more Kaya realized this machine wasn't just a dispenser of snacks or simple goods. It was something far more advanced. Wires were tangled and corroded, and several components appeared to have melted together in a catastrophic failure. The power source was flickering weakly, barely managing to keep the machine alive. A strange substance coated many of the parts, something slick and organic almost like sap that had seeped into the machine's circuits over the years. Kaya grimaced, wiping the strange goo off her fingers and grabbing a fresh roll of duct tape. The sticky substance made her repairs even more difficult, but she wasn't about to back down. She had never met a machine she couldn't fix, and this wasn't going to be the first. Working her way through the machine's insides, Kaya began patching up broken circuits and rerouting power where she could. The alien tech was unlike anything she had seen before, but it had a certain logic to it. Wires and conduits that were unfamiliar in design still followed basic principles of engineering. She removed a fried component, replacing it with one from her own kit, and connected severed wires with more duct tape than she cared to admit. At the heart of the machine, she found something unexpected, a power core unlike anything she had ever seen. It was encased in a crystalline shell, humming faintly with energy. It looked ancient, far older than the other parts of the vending machine, and there was something almost alive about it. As she ran her scanner over the core, the readings were off the charts, indicating energy levels that shouldn't have been possible, at least not for a simple vending system. "What are you?" she whispered, marveling at the alien technology. The crystalline core pulsed softly, as if in response, and Kaya felt a strange twinge in her gut. It was almost like the machine was waiting for her to do something, or perhaps for her to unlock whatever had been dormant within it for so long. As she worked, Kaya discovered more anomalies. Some of the circuits led to areas of the machine that didn't make sense for dispensing items. In fact, the more she studied the design, the less it looked like a traditional vending machine at all. Certain sections seemed designed to interface with something, perhaps the station itself. There were odd data streams running from the vending machine into the station's infrastructure, as though it had been connected to Xenos 7's core systems all along. "That explains the station reacting when I turned you on," she muttered, following one of the wires deeper into the machine. "You're not just a vending machine. You're integrated into the whole outpost." A chill ran down her spine. If the machine was connected to the station, it might have access to more than just a few random goods. It could control vital systems, security protocols, or worse, something far more dangerous. What had the long-dead designers of this outpost been planning? After hours of tinkering and reconfiguring the circuits, Kaya wiped her brow and surveyed her work. She had reconnected the power core to the primary conduits, rerouted energy away from the damaged systems, and replaced a few of the missing components with makeshift parts from her kit. It wasn't a perfect repair, but it was enough to give the machine another shot at life. "Okay," she breathed, stepping back. "Let's try this again." Kaya pressed a button on the control panel, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, the machine flickered back to life. The lights pulsed rhythmically, and the hum of power filled the room once again. The holographic display blinked back on, and the text reappeared. "System rebooting. Galactic Convergence Vending System initializing." Kaya held her breath as the machine whirred and clicked, the sound of gears grinding inside as it processed her repairs. It sputtered once, twice, and then a loud clunk echoed from deep within. Kaya winced, worried that she might have missed something. But then, with a final surge of energy, the machine's display glowed bright, and the alien symbols reappeared, shifting back into readable text. "System operational. Please select your item." Kaya exhaled, a grin spreading across her face. She had done it. The vending machine was alive again, for the first time in over a century. But before she could celebrate, something caught her eye. Beneath the control panel, a small compartment had opened. It wasn't part of the original design, at least not as far as she could tell. Inside the compartment was a metallic box, humming with a faint, otherworldly energy. The box was sleek and smooth, no larger than her hand, but it radiated a kind of power that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "What is this?" Kaya whispered, reaching out to touch the box. As her fingers brushed the surface, the box lit up with a soft, blue glow. A strange energy coursed through her, and for a brief moment, she felt connected to something far greater than herself, something ancient and vast, stretching across the stars. Suddenly, the machine's holographic display changed once more, flashing a new message. "Warning, activation of convergence protocol detected. Galactic regulators en route." Kaya's heart skipped a beat. Regulators? What regulators? Before she could process what was happening, the ground beneath her feet trembled, and the distant roar of engines filled the station. Through the grimy viewport of the marketplace, she saw it, a massive, sleek cruiser dropping out of hyperspace, its black hull glinting against the backdrop of stars. Panic surged through her veins. Whoever these regulators were, they were coming fast and they didn't sound friendly. The floor of Xeno 7 shook beneath Kaya's boots, rattling the ancient walls of the long-abandoned station. Through the viewport, she watched the massive Galactic Council cruiser descend, its sleek, black form cutting through the darkness like a predator. The regulators had arrived, and they weren't wasting any time. Kaya's heart raced as she processed the situation. The vending machine, the strange power source, the cryptic warning, what had she stumbled into? Gripping the glowing metallic box she had found, she glanced back at the vending machine, which still stood humming softly, the holographic display flickering with new life. "Warning, galactic regulators en route. Please remain stationary." She had heard of the Galactic Council's regulators before, but never in her wildest dreams had she expected to encounter them, let alone on a derelict outpost. The regulators were the galaxy's supreme authority, charged with maintaining order over the use of advanced technologies, especially ones that were forbidden, dangerous, or simply beyond understanding. If they were here for this vending machine, it wasn't just a piece of old junk, it was something far more significant. Kaya's instincts screamed for her to run, but curiosity, the very thing that had driven her here in the first place, held her in place. She needed to know what this machine was and why it had been left dormant for so long. More importantly, what did the convergence protocol mean? The cruiser's engines roared as it locked into a docking sequence. There wasn't much time. Kaya glanced at the machine, its holographic display still prompting her to select an item. The categories food, technology, medicines, artifacts glowed faintly, waiting for her input. She wasn't sure why, but a part of her felt like the answer to this whole mystery lay in whatever the machine was offering. Shooting a quick look toward the approaching ship, she tapped the holographic interface and selected the artifacts category, her curiosity outweighing her growing anxiety. The machine whirred loudly, its ancient gears grinding and clanking as it processed her request. Suddenly, the dispenser opened, and with a loud clunk, something dropped into the tray below. Kaya bent down and retrieved the item, a small, glowing orb, no bigger than a grapefruit, pulsating with a faint blue light. The surface was smooth and cool to the touch, yet it vibrated with an energy that made her feel like it was alive. As soon as the orb was in her hands, the vending machine's display shifted again, item dispensed. Convergence protocol active. What the hell is the convergence protocol? Kaya muttered, staring at the glowing orb in her hands. Before she could inspect it further, a booming voice echoed through the station's comm system, making her jump. "This is Commander Treeland of the Galactic Council Regulators. Step away from the machine immediately." Kaya's breath hitched. She glanced toward the docking bay doors, her mind racing. She could hear the distant clank of metal as the regulators boarded the station, their boots hitting the ground with military precision. They were coming, and fast. She tucked the orb into her jacket and darted behind one of the derelict market stalls, crouching low as she peeked out toward the entrance. Moments later, the doors to the marketplace slid open with a hiss, and a squad of heavily armored regulators marched in. At their head was Commander Treeland, a tall, imposing figure dressed in sleek, black armor that shimmered with advanced tech. His helmet concealed his face, but his commanding presence was unmistakable. Treeland's gaze swept across the room, locking immediately onto the vending machine, which continued to hum quietly in the center of the marketplace. He raised a hand, signaling his squad to fan out. "Contain the area," he ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. "The convergence protocol must be neutralized." Kaya's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of the orb in her jacket pocket, its soft glow barely visible through the fabric. Whatever this thing was, the regulators clearly didn't want it falling into the wrong hands, hers included. Treeland approached the machine cautiously, his gloved hand reaching out to touch the control panel. He pressed a few buttons, but the vending machine remained unresponsive to his commands. His voice grew sharp, filled with frustration. "Damn it," he muttered. "It's too late. The system has been reactivated." One of the regulators stepped forward, a tall woman with silver-plated armor that reflected the dim light of the station. "What do you mean, Commander? How is that possible? The convergence vending system has been offline for over a century." Treeland's fists clenched. "Someone fixed it," he said, scanning the room with a look of suspicion. "Someone brought it back online." Kaya held her breath, crouching lower behind the stall. She knew she couldn't hide forever, but she wasn't about to give herself up just yet. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she had learned. The convergence protocol, the orb, the vending machine, it was all connected somehow. But why had the machine been left on a forgotten outpost? And why had the regulators responded so quickly to its reactivation? Before she could think of a plan, the machine's display flickered again, casting a soft light across the room. A new message appeared, directed at Treeland and his squad. "Convergence active. Await further instructions." The regulators froze, staring at the message in disbelief. Treeland took a step back, his eyes narrowing. This can't be happening. The convergence wasn't supposed to be reactivated. Not without authorization from the Council. Kaya's mind raced. Clearly, this convergence protocol was something far more dangerous than she had imagined. She could see the tension in Treeland's stance, the fear hidden behind his commanding tone. Whatever the vending machine was supposed to do, the regulators were terrified of it. Her gaze shifted to the orb tucked safely in her jacket. Could this small object be the key to whatever the convergence was? The thought sent a chill down her spine. She needed answers, but getting them wasn't going to be easy with a squad of regulators breathing down her neck. Suddenly, the machine let out a loud, metallic clunk, and the lights in the marketplace flickered. The vending machine began to emit a low hum, and the ground beneath Kaya's feet trembled. Treeland stepped back, his eyes wide with alarm. "Get away from the machine," he shouted. "It's activating." The regulators moved to retreat, but before they could escape, the vending machine released a surge of energy, sending a shockwave through the room. Kaya was thrown off balance, tumbling backward as the energy pulsed through the station. The lights above flickered and dimmed, plunging the room into near darkness. For a brief moment, everything was silent. Then, the machine spoke. "Convergence protocol fully activated. Galactic resources recalibrating. Await synchronization." Kaya scrambled to her feet, her head spinning. The air crackled with energy, and she could feel the power radiating from the vending machine. The orb in her jacket pulsed in response, its light growing brighter as the machine systems fully came online. Treeland stared at the machine in disbelief. "This is impossible," he muttered. The convergence vending system was designed to regulate the distribution of galactic resources. Its malfunction caused the collapse of entire economies. We thought it was lost forever. He turned to his squad. "Secure the area. No one leaves this station until we understand what's happening." Kaya's heart pounded in her chest. She knew she couldn't stay hidden much longer. The regulators would find her, and when they did, they would surely confiscate the orb and worse, take her into custody for tampering with the machine. But Kaya wasn't ready to give up yet. Whatever the convergence was, she had activated it, and something told her that she was now a part of it, whether she liked it or not. Clutching the glowing orb, she made a decision. She had to find out what this machine was truly capable of and why it had been left dormant for so long. As the regulators searched the station, Kaya slipped deeper into the shadows, her mind racing with questions. But one thing was clear: the vending machine was more than just an ancient relic. It held the power to reshape the galaxy, and she was the only one who could decide what happened next. Kaya's pulse quickened as she slipped through the shadows, moving away from the regulators who were now fully engrossed with the vending machine. The orb pulsed in her jacket like a living heartbeat, radiating energy she could feel deep in her bones. Whatever she had activated, it wasn't just a vending system, it was something far more dangerous. And now, the fate of the galaxy seemed to rest in her hands. The regulators moved in organized patterns, sweeping through the marketplace as they searched for her. Kaya ducked behind a derelict kiosk, her mind racing. She needed to think fast. The vending machine was connected to something big, something galactic in scope. If the regulators were afraid of it, then she had to figure out why. And more importantly, what they intended to do with it. Commander Treeland's voice echoed through the chamber as he barked orders. Prepare to contain the convergence system. This station and everyone on it are under Galactic Council jurisdiction until further notice. Contain the system? That didn't sound good. Kaya's grip tightened around the orb in her pocket. Whatever was happening, she had a gut feeling the regulators weren't here to fix things, they were here to shut it down. And if they took control of the vending machine, she might never learn the truth. Suddenly, the vending machine hummed louder, and the lights flickered again, sending a wave of energy rippling through the station. Kaya felt a strange, magnetic pull from the orb in her jacket, as if it was reacting to the machine's energy. She glanced at it, the glowing blue surface casting faint light through the fabric. Whatever this thing was, it was important, possibly the key to everything. Taking a deep breath, Kaya slipped out from behind the kiosk and darted toward a maintenance hatch at the back of the marketplace. She had spent enough time in derelict stations to know that the service tunnels would give her access to the heart of the outpost and, more importantly, a way to avoid the regulators. If she could get to the station's main control room, she might be able to figure out what was really going on. The hatch creaked as she pried it open, the sound masked by the rumble of the vending machine's strange, mechanical activity. She climbed inside, her heart pounding, and sealed the hatch behind her. The narrow tunnels were dark and musty, but she knew they would lead her where she needed to go. As she crawled through the cramped space, Kaya's mind raced. What was the convergence protocol? And why had this machine been left abandoned on a forgotten outpost at the edge of the galaxy? More importantly, why had it been built in the first place? The machine seemed capable of more than dispensing goods. It had connected to the station systems, maybe even to something larger: galactic infrastructure, resource distribution, or even economic control. After what felt like an eternity, she reached the central control room. The door was rusted and barely functional, but she managed to pry it open. Inside, the room was filled with dusty, inactive control panels and flickering screens. The station's power reserves were almost completely drained, but the energy from the vending machine had reactivated some of the systems. A large central console glowed dimly, and on it, she saw the same message that had appeared on the vending machine: Convergence Protocol active. Await synchronization. Kaya approached the console, her fingers hesitating over the controls. This was at the nerve center of the outpost, and possibly the key to understanding what she had unlocked. She pulled the orb from her jacket and placed it on the console. The orb pulsed brightly, and the station systems flared to life, reacting instantly to its presence. The screens around her lit up with complex streams of data, and a holographic interface projected from the console, displaying a map of the galaxy. Lines of energy flowed between different star systems, connecting them in intricate patterns that resembled trade routes, energy flows, and even planetary resources. It all pointed to one conclusion: this vending machine wasn't just a dispenser. It was tied to the entire galactic infrastructure. "This isn't just a machine," Kaya whispered, her eyes wide as she scanned the map. "It's a control system for galactic resources." She began to understand. The Convergence Protocol was some kind of mechanism designed to manage or even redistribute resources across the galaxy. It had been built to ensure balance, to regulate everything from food supplies to technology, medicine, and possibly even artifacts of immense power. The vending machine was just one node in a much larger network, a network that could shape the galaxy's entire economy. But why had it been abandoned? Why had it been shut down in the first place? Before she could dive deeper into the data, the console flashed red, and an alarm blared. Kaya's heart skipped a beat. The regulators had found her. Commander Treeland's voice boomed over the station's intercom. "Whoever is tampering with the control room systems, stop immediately. You have no idea what you're dealing with." Kaya gritted her teeth. "Oh, I think I have a pretty good idea," she muttered, fingers flying over the controls. She had to think fast. The regulators were going to storm the control room any minute. If they shut down the vending machine, the Convergence Protocol would be lost, and the galaxy would fall back into whatever imbalance the machine had been designed to prevent. But if she activated the system completely, she wasn't sure what would happen. Could she even control it? Her eyes darted to the duct tape on her belt. She smiled. When in doubt, duct tape. Grabbing the roll, she quickly opened a panel beneath the console, revealing a mess of wires and broken circuits. It was no wonder the station systems were failing. Parts of the control interface were completely fried. Without thinking, she began patching things up, rerouting power and using duct tape to secure loose wires. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold. The vending machine's humming grew louder, and the map on the holographic interface began to shift. Energy surged through the system, and Kaya could feel the power flowing from the machine into the station's core. The entire outpost vibrated with the intensity of the activation. "Synchronization in progress," the machine's voice announced. "Convergence Protocol stabilizing." Kaya didn't have much time. She glanced at the map again. The vending machine had tapped into a network that spanned the galaxy, connecting planets, stations, and trade routes. Resources were being redistributed in real time, recalibrating to create balance where there had once been chaos. She could see entire star systems lighting up on the display as the Convergence Protocol took effect. Suddenly, the door to the control room burst open, and Commander Treeland stormed in, flanked by two regulators. His eyes locked onto Kaya, and for a moment, he looked more surprised than angry. "What have you done?" he demanded, stepping forward. "Do you have any idea what kind of power you're dealing with?" Kaya stood tall, the glowing orb still pulsing on the console behind her. "I know exactly what kind of power this is," she said, her voice steady. "It's the power to rebalance the galaxy." Treeland narrowed his eyes, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma pistol. "This system was deactivated for a reason. You've reawakened something that was never meant to be used again. The Convergence Protocol caused economic chaos a century ago. If it's fully reactivated, it could destabilize everything." Kaya shook her head. "No. That's not what this is. The system wasn't designed to cause chaos, it was designed to prevent it. Someone shut it down because they wanted the chaos. And now you're here to make sure it stays that way." Treeland's expression darkened. "You're wrong. This machine is too dangerous to be controlled by anyone, especially someone who doesn't understand its true purpose." Kaya's hand hovered over the final button on the console, the one that would fully activate the Convergence Protocol. She glanced at Treeland, then back at the map of the galaxy, where the energy flows were still stabilizing. She didn't know what would happen if she pressed it, but she knew one thing: the galaxy needed change. Without hesitation, she pressed the button. The station shuddered violently as the convergence protocol fully activated. A brilliant light surged from the vending machine, spreading through the outpost and into the stars. Kaya could feel the shift. The galaxy was rebalancing itself, resources flowing to where they were needed most. Planets that had been starved of food and technology were suddenly being supplied. Economies that had collapsed were beginning to stabilize. Treeland's face twisted with anger. "You've doomed us all," he shouted, drawing his weapon. But before he could fire, the vending machine let out a final, deep hum, and the orb on the console flared brightly, sending a wave of energy through the room. Treeland and his regulators were thrown backward, their weapons clattering to the floor. Kaya stood in the center of the room, bathed in the soft glow of the convergence energy. She could feel the power of the system coursing through her, the galaxy shifting and recalibrating under its influence. The vending machine's voice echoed softly through the room. Convergence complete. Galactic resources synchronized. Balance restored. Kaya exhaled, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. The galaxy was rebalancing, and for the first time in a century, there was hope for true stability. Treeland struggled to his feet, glaring at her. "You don't understand what you've unleashed," he growled. Kaya smiled, tucking the glowing orb back into her jacket. "Maybe not," she said. "But I've got a roll of duct tape, and I'm ready for whatever comes next." As the regulators retreated and the station began to settle, Kaya looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. The galaxy had changed, and so had she. But one thing was certain: the galactic convergence vending system had a purpose, and it wasn't finished yet. This was only the beginning.